So, ladies and gentlemen, we move on to the next panel. Now we're going to talk about grids. We've talked about them quite a lot in the last panel. Now we're going to really focus. And our exam question is a very simple one. What do we do on grids? What do we do on the electricity system in general to ensure that we have stability, reliability in our electricity system, whilst we are increasing the share of renewables in electricity, and how do we ensure at the same time that we are safeguarding consumer interests and managing electricity bills in the right way? Please welcome up onto the panel, onto the stage, our panelists. First of all, Mr. Volker Raffel, the CEO of E.ON Romania, Daniela Daraban, the Executive Director of ACUE, the Utilities Association, Alfredo Perez, Executive Vice President of Hitachi Energy. We have representative from Transelectrica, and joining us very shortly, your own energy regulator, Mr. George Niculescu. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the panelists. Great, thank you very much indeed, panel, for joining us. Daniela, you represent all of the energy utilities of Romania. This is a really big exam question we got in this panel. Yeah? How are we going to keep consumer prices down? How are we going to ensure a stable, reliable grid, while at the same time increasing renewables? What's your answer?
I would say that with great collaboration between private and public sector, with a good planning and probably realistic targets, better alignment between strategies and secondary legislation.
Well, thank you for that. That's very clear and succinct. Volker, what would your answer be?
Thank you. I think it's easy. If you want to save money, you have to save it in the right spot. If you save it in the wrong spot, you do not achieve your target. So what does it mean? I recently have seen a street with 10 houses and all 10 of them having PVs. Sun is shining and the energy is not arriving at the national system, is not bringing down the price because it is badly connected, because the grid is not yet there. It is there, it is a small wire, it is connected, but the power is not arriving where it must be. So the answer here is to invest into grids, otherwise the price of electricity is unnecessarily high. And if we want to do that one, and if we want to achieve this one, we have to do the investments into the grids. Now, I have seen a public debate. Some say, if you want to invest so much money into grids, that's damned expensive.
They are recommending certain types of, let's say, strategic approaches and innovative tools. Still, I think are a lot of things to be clarified. For example, exactly what you consider to be an anticipatory investment. And here is the help, at least to my knowledge, that local authorities can get from ASER, which is the institution that can support them in creating the right, let's say, regulatory environment. Now, if you look still strictly to Romania, we have as an association, because Romania now is preparing to get in the next regulatory period, which will take like 5 years, meaning that for the next 5 years, Romania, through the secondary legislation approved early in August this year, have established the framework and the parameters, including the financial one, for the investors in the distribution business, for the next 5 years. The next 5 years for Romania will mean 2030, meaning the first milestone in the way to meet the targets on net zero. We have an ambition plan in terms of production capacity. We see it in the strategic documents Romania revisioned, or they are in process of discussion, but still what we see published as draft, or the documents approved. Very, let's say, ambitious planning, still we question if these targets are complemented by the regulatory, by the secondary legislation. We, through the industry, we initiated let's say, constant and thoughtful dialogue with authority. We put it on their table, lots of studies. We have an estimation that Romania for the next 5 years will need to triple the investments we had so far in the distribution system, meaning that we have to move from about €500 million euros per year to 1.1, 1.5 in the most optimal scenario. In this scenario, we will have to get about 6 billion euros from it's private financing. In order to get this, you need an environment, a proper environment in the distribution business that is actually ensuring the operators access to this money. Yes, it's true, we do have historically huge figures available from the modernization fund, but still it's a small part considering the entire amount. In total, our estimation is that we will need to reach 9 to 10 billion euros in the next 5 years, with 6 billion from our calculations still to be found from private investors.
Thank you, Daniela. That is really interesting what you say. Trebling the investments in the distribution grid. You began by saying it's the consumer at the end of the day that's got to pay for this. Does this therefore mean trebling the distribution grid tariffs on consumer bills?
This is something that when you put all these figures on the table, of course, the main concern that the authority or the decision makers have, and we have experienced this in our dialogue with them, is okay, the sustainability, affordability of the tariff and the final price for the energy. Still, we believe that through the right planning, planification, and flexible and innovative methodology for tariff, we can reach, during this 5-year period, let's say a modeling that will mitigate the impact. I mean, and as Volker said, our estimation is that for this amount of money, in the tariff you will have like 5 ban per kilowatt hour. So it's somehow, in our opinion, it's sustainable for the economy and for the households. Still needs to be something that probably the authorities will have to address it with more thoughts on the figures. I mean, they need to have right modeling in place to make sure that they have the right figures, right data, and in this, let's say, effort to, okay, better not to risk because I don't know where the tariff goes, so I will somehow use the old type of regulation in order to mitigate the tariff. You may risk to put more pressure on the price because the consumers will not have access to the cheaper energy that is coming from the production side. Because what we are expecting through all these new capacities is to see a better price, more competition, access to resources, lower, let's say, costly technology. We would like to see a better price on the energy. So with this, let's say, balancing the cost, entire cost in the final, let's say, bill to the customer, I think they can get an affordable price to 2030.
To put it in very simple terms then, the transmission and distribution fees for the consumers in their bills might go up a bit, but that will be offset by a fall in the production amounts. Okay, thank you very much. Volker, E.ON operate distribution networks here in Romania. Are you ready as a private company to invest your own money in the further expansion of these grids?
We have prepared everything to do that. We have upgraded our organization. We have all the plans in hand. We have feasibility studies, everything done. We're ready to go. So in this very moment, we are in that final discussion about the electricity tariffs, and later on also on gas tariffs, but for the time being on electricity tariffs. So we have submitted our view. We are waiting for the answer of the authority. We are negotiating, or not negotiating, but explaining what we intend, and we are answering questions we get. So this discussion is still ongoing. However, I think we must not shy away from that question. The cheapest highway, somebody told me we cannot, our customers cannot afford for the grid. I think it is like with a highway. The cheapest highway is no highway. So but is that the right decision for Romania? So I'm convinced we need to upgrade the distribution grids. It's not that we have not done it in the past. We have done our part. As E.ON, we invested more than €2 billion in the past 20 years we are here. So it's not that we are not doing anything, but now we have new technologies, we have more smart meters which we need, and so on. We need IT systems. We are handling millions of injection points in future, and not only 100. So there are things that must be done. We are ready to do it. But for this, I'm convinced if the balance is not met by the regulatory authority, we will only absorb a certain part of the EU funds. We will not mobilize at maximum the private capital in order to save the small amount of electricity tariffs we are discussing, but not grasping the energy which already could be there, because we are not making a plan for the future. Shall we build a nuclear, or shall we build in 10 years a PV? The PV is built today. So for instance, 3 years ago we had less than 100 prosumers in our grid in total. Then came a time when we had 100 requests per month. Now we are, in this very moment, we are connecting 100 prosumers a day, a working day. So this is going on. This energy production capacity is there. There are wind parks which are constructed. And if we are not reacting right now, and not only after a further 2 years of discussion, but right now with the right things to do, it just will be in delay because you do not do it overnight.
The no highway solution that you mentioned, that means E.ON wants to invest not just in new copper and new lines, but also in smart grid solutions, in flexibility, yes, in the optimization of existing grid infrastructure, yes.
Yes, the full program.
Okay, thank you. Optimization of existing grid infrastructure. Let's turn to the technology provider now. What can you offer? I'm thinking dynamic line rating, modular power flow control, things like that, Alfredo, to get more electrons into the existing lines.
And it's good to start with distribution grids, because in this grid awareness, transmission takes the big part of the conversation, but there is no electrification if the electrons don't reach the consumer. So there is no electrification if I cannot charge my electrical car. So distribution grid investment is absolutely key. And here, the support from the regulator is absolutely fundamental to recognize the need for those investments going forward. So from a technology perspective, we heard it during the morning several times, and I was very pleased to see that the awareness is there. Digital is absolutely key. So we are moving to a world where things are going to get more complex. That's a reality. And we should not shy away, we should not ignore it, we should just work on it and make it happen. So digitalization will be key because we have more prosumers. Electric flows will go both ways, from the generation to the consumer. The consumer become prosumers and feed the grids with green electrons. So that complexity needs to be managed. And the only way to do that is with digital. The grid also will become more unstable. We are removing from the grid a lot of this mechanical stuff, heavyweight duty machines that are rotating and keep the inertia on the grid. We're going to get rid of that. So to balance that, to compensate for that, digital will help you. bring in grid-forming converters with power electronics. So technologies are there, as I said, from the beginning. We just need to have a good roadmap, so where to put what, how to manage the system to make it sustainable and to make it affordable also. So from a technology perspective, we always say we base things on 3 key technologies. Power electronics is the first one. It helps you to build those storage facilities, those wind turbines with those converters inside, but also those FACTS systems, these machines that keep the grid stable, and these long-distance HVDC systems. So power electronics is absolutely key. And by the way, it's a technology that we've invented in Europe. So it's a technology we master here, and all the major suppliers are here in this continent. So we can build on that and rely on that. The second piece is digital, as I said, for the good reason I said. And the third one is sustainability. We think sustainability is absolutely key, because we need to think about recyclability, to close the loops, and to reuse materials. So because materials is also something we need to address in this piece. So I think the roadmap is clear. We just need to go and implement it.
Thank you, Alfredo. Hitachi Energy make equipment just for transmission networks or for distribution networks as well?
Our main business is the transmission side, and we are inside the distribution with some equipments and digital solutions. But we care about distribution because there is no way to develop one without the other, and the development must be holistic and coordinated.
Okay, and what specifically can you do in the transmission networks that will increase the efficiency and reduce the need for investments in distribution networks?
Yeah, I think we heard this several times, the balance piece, no? The balancing. So we need those transmission grids to be able to bring the power across regions in the country, these interconnection pieces. So all those elements will help the overall system. So, and here again, I think the plans exist in Romania. I think the strategic position of Romania in the central of Europe is absolutely fundamental, is an opportunity for Europe, and transmission will play a big role.
Okay, thank you. Daniela Folker, lots of new investments needed. Private investments. Private investors always say, okay, fine, we like grids, but what's the revenue model? Maybe Folker. I mean, the new investments E.ON want to make, is the revenue coming exclusively from consumer grid tariffs, or might it come from other sources, people who are ready to pay for ancillary services for getting 24/7 renewable electricity in data centers, for example?
What we are developing as a pilot model, and we as E.ON, we already pilot some things already in Germany, and we are going to pilot in other countries too. I think we are going to have a certain degree of, or to use a flexibility that is going to build into the grid. Let's take an example. If you are a prosumer and you produce solar power during the day, but you are working on that in that hour, and you're coming home just after the sunset, and you put on your air conditioner, and then at 4 p.m. we do not know where to put the electricity, and at 6 p.m. we do not know where to take it from. That's not the way to go. That's why the new PV program in Romania includes, by obligation, you only get the subsidy if you also add a storage to it. So that's one example. Or if, you know, we have had this hype of heat pumps in Germany already. So if the heat pump, if you want to have it warm in your living room in the morning or in your kitchen, it does not matter to you whether your heat pump starts at 3 a.m. or at 4 a.m. But it may matter a lot to the system. And to use that flexibility which is there will bring down the total cost. So therefore, that is what I see in the future, these markets to develop, which will only work if we have cost-reflective elements in it and incentive of customers of doing it. And I'm not saying that now you as a private customer at home, there are some nerds like me with an app, and then I charge my car right now while the sun is shining, and I wash maybe not over the day but during night. But this for sure is a small part of population. it will be our task as suppliers to offer solutions that the customer does not care about, and still this flexibility will be used and will bring down the total cost of grid distribution, because we do not need to cover even the extreme peaks, but we have to. This one works? Yeah, thank you. So we do not need to cover by investments extreme peaks, but we need to cover the normal. And on that one, I'm sure we have already found the right balance, how far to go with the investments. Now the balance which we need to find is on regulation, because your question, precisely to your question, is who pays for it? At the end, it's paid by tariffs, by electricity consumers. But as I said, if it is done in the right way, and we can mobilize private capital right now, we can do now the investments which are lending in Romania, improving Romanian infrastructure, going to Romanian service providers, so the money arrives in that market and will trigger a strong positive impact to GDP growth. And if we do that one, the pay down is over depreciation over up to 40 years, because our assets are there for 30, 40 years. So the total impact right now is moderate, but the impact on macroeconomic level is big. And if we do that in the right way, we can attract EU funds. And as I said, in the modernization funds, where the minister was mentioning the 1.1, 1.2 billion euro available right now, maybe to add on it. And that's the right thing to do, because then for €1 of investment by the grid operator, you receive another €4 of EU funds. And this is a once in a lifetime chance of Romania. Who knows whether in 5 years still they will be going to around so many EU funds when Ukraine reconstruction starts or other things have been developed until then. Who knows whether it is there? What I do know is it's here now. Let's use it.
Thank you. You're describing services which your company is offering, will be offering. Fantastic, responding to consumer needs. One might say not necessarily all consumers are going to be interested in those services. So could you create additional revenue models by charging certain consumers for certain services?
You raise here an absolutely important question. Who pays how much for the grid? I know that is a sensitive topic, but if you are getting a prosumer, I think you help the national system, and for that it is a right that you get support, like Casa Verde program or other incentives. But how far to go? So a prosumer or a consumer who gets a prosumer, who's becoming a prosumer, formerly paid per each kilowatt hour he consumed, also part of distribution tariff. Now, when he gets prosumer, he takes less out of the grid, and then he also pays less for distribution. But is he using less the distribution grid? No, he injects. He uses the distribution grid as a huge battery. I'm not saying a prosumer must pay more for grid or whatever, but he should also not pay less than he did before. Because otherwise, that cost goes to grandma on the countryside, paying for a prosumer who already gets state support, and therefore everybody is complaining to us by saying, you increase your electricity distribution tariff so much. Yeah, for those who pay, but because the others pay less. And it's not because I'm charging everything or I'm inventing high cost or whatever, it's just because it's a wrong distribution of the fee to the customers. So that is what I meant by saying cost reflective. It cannot be that those using the grid more intensively pay less. Then we go wrong, and the energy transition done in the wrong way will not be socially accepted on long term. But I want to build something sustainable and not to have a boom for 1 year which explodes the next.
Point fully taken on prosumers. Well said. I'm going to give you a slight rest now. I'm coming back to you in a minute with a similar question about the Amazons and Googles who want 24/7 clean electricity for their data centers. Should they be paying more for that? But Daniela, over to you now for answers to the general question here. Do we need additional revenue streams for the investors, reflecting the costs for these additional services that are being offered that not necessarily all consumers will be paying for?
I think in terms of policy, definitely if investors on the entire chain, I mean, they will understand, they will listen and understand each other. For example, we have huge investments in new production capacity. Comparing with the level of investment we estimate by 2030, 2040, the level of required investment in the grid still, it's less, more or less. So my question is for the entire industry, would it be worth it to do these investments in order to maximize what we are investing and use to the full potential what we do on the production side? Of course, yes. So I think it's not somebody against somebody, is not that the distributors or transport system operators, they wouldn't like to have more business, because at the end of the day, it's different, but it's business for them. It's the fact that we need to understand that technological limitation is there, because the grid was built to serve a different system. Now we are changing the system. And we need to understand that without grid and without transmission, we cannot do it. So it's a moment when we have to sit at the table and understand that the level of investment, again, what we estimated that is required for Romania, is still less than what we estimate in production, but it's the key to enable the production to get to the consumer. So it's a small point, but with big impact. So I think in terms of policy, you can find the right tuning. I've seen lots of, let's say, proposals and assessment, things that have been tried by various countries in order to achieve better way of, let's say, regulating the system in terms of responding to the needs and, of course, looking on the other side, the consumer too, but you need to be more creative, you need to be flexible, you need to listen to the private sector, to be open to the new technologies. And this is all taking a bit of more trust between regulator, or at least this is my taken from all the discussion we have with the national Romanian regulator. It's still a matter of trust between the players and the public sector.
Thank you. You mentioned the National Energy Regulator. He's about to walk through the door any moment now and take his seat here on the panel so we can put questions directly to him. Volker, back to you with my question. Should the data centers be paying more for 24/7 renewable electricity, which is what they want, of course?
They have to pay the fair price, because if you want to have 24/7 power for 24/7, you must build a system that provides power 24/7, and no one is asking just a fantasy price or whatever, but it must be a fair price. So the question behind yours is how to provide 24/7 power in a modern world where we have a lot of PV and wind power plants. So, and here again, I'm just not believing in dogmas. I'm believing in pragmatism, and let's build it in the right way. I hear some people saying the right answer is all electric, and I'm not doubting that electric and more investments in renewables is okay. No, but let's do it the right way. To give you an example, if I put puzzles of European energy strategy together in the wrong way, you land with the following. You build thousands of megawatts of new renewables. You build electrolyzer, second investment. Third, you build storage places for hydrogen. Fourth investment, you transport it. Fifth investment, you have a power plant, a hydrogen-ready gas-fired power plant, to transform that hydrogen, when there's no wind and sun, into power. And then you upgrade the electricity distribution grid in a capital like Bucharest. Sixth investment, and then you rip off the existing gas boilers and you build a heat pump which costs 10 to 30,000 euro a heat pump if the apartment is ready for it. And then you have, at the end, if you calculate the whole thing, you end up with 8 different investments at macroeconomic level in order to bring heat to an apartment which is heated already today. So if you do it that way, you end up in nirvana, you will lose social acceptance, it's not going to work at all. This being said, I believe in renewables. But if you produce hydrogen, why not just to put it in our gas grids? It's there. The gas grid is there. If you now go with dogmatism, gas is evil, rip it off out the ground, and I see that already happening somewhere in some parts of Germany, then you end up with that one. The only thing which is even worse is if you build 3 or 4 infrastructures in parallel, like building a district heating grid and an electricity grid which is ready for heat pumps and a natural gas grid which brings you natural gas or hydrogen or whatever. And maybe someone says, it was a European idea, to build new hydrogen infrastructure. So 4 infrastructures to heat apartments. Is that crazy? Yes, it's crazy. So what we need to have is a national debate where to heat with what. And not to build 4 infrastructures because they are regulated anyway, but one for the purpose where it makes sense. So, if we manage this one, to do it in the right way, yes, it's good to build a new renewable power, but let's do the storage in a way that it works, and I offer our natural gas grids already today to inject also hydrogen. It's safe, we tested it up to 20%, no problem, and imagine 20% of the natural gas volumes in our distribution grids to be hydrogen. It can fluctuate, and we inject the hydrogen if the sun is shining and the wind is blowing, and we use a bit less and the natural gas out of storage when it's not. And then you already have the heat pumps, the heating where you have gas boilers today. And yes, I'm believing in heat pumps, to build heat pumps where it makes sense and where you do not have gas, or if you build a new house. So let's not do one size fits all, but let's do it in the right way.
Thank you. Specific question for you all now on storage. It only requires a one-word answer. Many storage operators say, it's not fair, we pay twice. We're taxed when we buy the electricity, we're taxed when we sell the electricity. Should we get rid of this so-called double taxation for storage? Alfredo.
As a technology supplier, I won't have a strong opinion, but it sounds clear that double taxation doesn't sound very fair, no?
Daniela.
Storage is critical. I fully agree that taxation shall be, let's say, optimized, not penalizing this activity.
Volker.
Same opinion. So double taxation means it's not about the total tax as the state takes, but it takes it wrongly in one place twice, and that is a wrong thing to do.
Thank you. Now a follow-up question on storage. Who should be allowed to own and operate storage?
It's an interesting one, because storage needs also to be optimized where to place it, no? So we were talking this morning in the previous session, this holistic planning thing. And I think that that's another word we need to start learning and understanding and mastering. So storage has huge benefits, and I think we all agree here at least, but where to place it? It has a huge role close to generation because it makes generation more stable, it supports the grid, it enables new revenue generation. So a lot of good ideas and good reason why to have storage co-located with generation. But you need also to support the grid. Sometimes generation or transmission is supported by storage, or you can defer investment in transmission, having the right storage place. I think the important is what you use the storage for. If you use the storage as a transmission asset, get remunerated for that. If you use it as a generation asset, let's get remunerated for that. So clarity on what you do with generation asset and get a clear remuneration scheme for that.
Daniela.
I fully agree with one point I will add here. Probably we will be better to have this possibility to use it on the distribution side, still for the to make the distribution more efficient. I mean, from the technical point of view, probably will be okay. I mean, I think will be economically okay for to be considered as a potential activity to be run by the distribution with. Okay, if it's necessary because of all these unbundling rules, a certain type of separation, which is to be considered, yeah.
Thank you, Volker.
I agree. it must be solved, we need storage. And yes, the storage helps the grid. So there are two possibilities. One is a grid operator stores himself, or there is a scheme around which is incentivizing market players to build their storages in the right place, and then them to remunerate if they help the grid to avoid further investments because they can solve it by storing. So one of the two things must be done. Maybe it's all even a mixture of it, but currently we are not doing neither nor. So whatever is built is only built for market, but never for grids, and I think that's the wrong thing.
Thank you, Volker. George, welcome. Delighted to see you. Not at all. Yes. George Niculescu, Energy Regulator of Romania, ANRE. George, you've arrived just at a perfect moment. So we've talked about storage. We've talked about grid tariffs. Oh, yes, yes. We've talked about... Yes, I'm sorry in your absence, but we'll give you the opportunity to comment yourself now. But perhaps let's start with a basic question. Romania needs to massively expand your electricity grids. What's your plan for making it happen? Volker may pass you a microphone.
Thank you very much. Sorry for being late. Good afternoon, good morning, everyone. Just finished the meeting of the regulatory body in ANRE. It was a long meeting, 58 points that we had to discuss, so this is the reason I was late. So directly into the topic of investments, developing the grids. I don't know what the companies already commented on this, but my point of view was and remains the same. We need a lot of investments in the grids in the next years. We have a difficult period of time ahead of us. Challenges may occur also this winter and the next years, and we need to be prepared to face all these challenges. We have adopted a new methodology for the next 5 years that will, in my opinion, stimulate the investments in the grids. As a matter of fact, Monday, the distribution companies submitted the investments plan for the next 5 years, the forecast of the investment plan, and this is not looking as optimistic as I was, but also reflects the possibilities of the companies to invest in the grids. It's a huge improvement from the last period of regulatory for the last 5 years. It's an improvement from 5% above the minimum what they had to invest to 20% more. So in figures, this was coming from 6.6 billion lei in PERE 4, where we had a WACC of 6.39, to PERE 5. It will be prognosed, estimation 11.2 billion lei. So it's an increase of 20%. On top of that, we have the investments that are financed through European funds available from the Ministry of Energy, the modernization funds, that only for 2 companies are more than around 3.5 billion lei. So I'm optimistic that the investment plan is going to be 50% more than we had in the last 5 years. So the bottom line is that the framework that we created, the regulatory framework that we created, it's a framework that increased the WACC, a framework that will incentivize new investments in the grid, that will stimulate the attraction of European funds in order to finance the projects, that will keep and reward the companies if they are keeping their services to the consumers at the best level. And I think that everybody will win from this regulatory framework.
That's great, George. Thank you very much. Volker, you were just talking about the need for greater incentives for network operators, both transmission and yourselves, distribution in E.ON, to make the investments needed. George has set out some hard detail there on how, and he said he wants to stimulate grid investments and improve incentives. Are you happy with what you've heard, or do you need more to incentivize you to invest in the distribution networks?
Well, as I said earlier, we submitted our ideas. We are currently in the procedure of clarification, so receiving questions, answering. I think we also ask and get answers to that, so that dialogue is ongoing. Some of our things we submitted includes we will do if. So I think this is still an ongoing process, and let's see where we end. I think probably end of November, early December, hopefully, I think we will know the electricity tariffs for next year. Let's see where we are. But I also know, and Mr. Niculescu just said it, he's in the investment, in the team pro-investment, supporting that investments happen. On the other hand, I've seen also relevant people from Andre making statements that actually they do not want us to invest too much in the next period. For instance, there are extra incentives introduced in that system for new investments to happen. But the payback for these investments starts only to happen in 2013. So somehow the basis is set today, but it shall be reflected in tariffs only starting 2030. And that is something which, for instance, as one of the examples, I think is still to be considered, to be reconsidered. And let's not go into all the details of regulation because we have long and many discussions. But therefore, I'm saying I think it is crucial what happens now. It's crucial what happens in the next period because now we are setting the basis for the next 5 years. And I'm convinced, as Mr. Niculescu also said, the investments are needed. If they do not happen, we will pay a higher price at the end by the energy not arriving where it should arrive.
George, do you really want to limit the amount grid operators invest?
I think a proof that this is not the mission I have ahead of ANRE is the fact that E.ON submitted an investment plan which is higher with 60% almost 57% plus investments from the last regulatory period. So this is a huge improvement when a company is submitting a plan of investments which is with 50% more from the last regulatory period, means that the regulation is stimulating investments.
Okay, thank you. Daniela, what do you think of what George has said so far?
I cannot comment on figures and data on the companies. I'm trying to keep the right and let's say the overall picture here. Of course, we are talking about an increase of investments because in the last years, if you look back, gradually the investments in the grid have increased. Now, when we talk about increasing an investment, my question is the picture, I mean, the investments are the level we need in order to, again, put everything that is coming and all the projects and all the billions that people are investing in new capacities, in new production capacities, plus all the changes we are going to see on the consumer side. Are all these investments served properly by the level of investment we see in the distribution system? I mean, this is not a debate, somebody's against somebody, it's about the picture Romania wants to have in 2030. And it's about a call for a reality check. We need to all together at the table have and a clear, let's say, professional approach, and see exactly if we have the right modeling in place, we can estimate the right amount we need to invest in order to make sure that all the targets and all the projects we have planned, they will be possible to be implemented and served as much as we can through the distribution system, with benefiting from the investments you need. So I think this is the question, because it's not about putting a percentage, because if will be to do like this nitty-gritty story, because methodology is a very complex situation, and we can talk about one point, and Mr. President is going to talk about different point, and Volker a different one, because are all type of points you can raise. But I think the best to do for all of us and all the people here investing in the production is to talk about reality. And let's see if we have the right investments in place.
George, over to you to respond.
Yes, just to clarify, why are we doing these investments? The reason for this is because we want to accommodate more renewables in the grid. Okay, on one hand, we want to integrate higher shares of prosumers. Okay, we want to secure our targets for the energy transition. But we also want to be benefiting from better services from these companies. We want to have fewer minutes without electricity in our homes. We want to have better services when we are calling the call centers, fewer minutes waiting for responses. So these investments should reflect also in a higher quality of the services that these companies are applying to the consumers. So this is why we introduced KPIs, in order to see that this type of investments reflects also the quality of the services that they are providing to the consumers.
Alfredo, your company, Hitachi Energy, one of Europe's leading manufacturers of transmission grid equipment, what can you do for Romania, and what do you want from Romania's energy regulator?
I think the framework we have in Romania is, as I said at the beginning, is extremely positive and inspiring. But let me bring then, as you suggested, Giles, the view on the supply chain. We have to realize altogether that a supply chain, we're living unprecedented times. So we want to build more grids, whether they are transmission, distribution. We want to electrify society, so we want to bring more electricity to the industry. We want to have more EVs on our streets, and we want to have a digitized society with more data centers. So the pressure on supply chain is absolutely phenomenal, which of course we like as suppliers, but also it's a challenge, because now the pressure on us is on delivery times, on supply chain, on costs, etc. So I think from an industry, what we are ready to do is to continue investing. As a company, we invested, since we became Hitachi Energy, more than $2 billion. We have another $6 billion on the road to invest until 2030, so we want to do our homework. We want to give also the opportunity for the investors to plan long term. So these days, the 2, 3, 4, 5 years planning is good, but we might need to start thinking even beyond that, because supply chain is so constrained. So as a regulator, to give a chance to the investors to plan long term, but also to invest long term and to commit the supply chain for the long term, that will help them to reduce the cost, secure the goods they need to invest in the grids. So it's a joint effort. As industry, we like the visibility, and we see things moving in Europe. We see some TSOs, transmission system operators, making those steps, and we see the benefits. Thanks to those anticipated investments, those commitments that are done with the supply chain, we are investing real big time in Europe. We want this to be extended to more and more players in the market.
Would you like to build a transformer factory in Romania?
We cannot build transformers factories everywhere, but be sure that there will be a local added value. And that's an important piece. We need to secure local added value and use what each country do the best. And if it's not us who build a transformer factory, maybe somebody else will do it. The important is the framework, that investment is welcome, and it is welcome. The visibility is there, the long-term visibility is there, and the investors are allowed to invest for long-term and make those anticipatory investments they need also.
What would be the game changer for your company to build a transformer factory in Romania?
Well, it's a regional view we have. And again, we should not do a fixation. I think everybody likes transformers factories. The point is that to build a greenfield factory is quite a nightmare. I mean, we are investing heavily in our existing factories, doubling the capacity, and we prefer to work on brownfield and greenfields. But we can invest a lot in digital, having people programming, and then working on software. We can have people erecting and maintaining assets. So there is a lot of other investments we have to do, and work then with local partners in Romania, which are many. Partner with local EPCs. So bring to our technology to the local EPCs so they can build and bring the stuff to the market.
George, where's the money going to come from to expand the grids in Romania? You clearly want to bring in private finance from all around Europe, debt finance, equity finance. What are you looking for?
This issue is a matter of the distribution companies. They have at their disposal the money that comes from the modernization fund. This is a huge fund that is at their disposal, and I'm sure that Minister Burduja explained the volumes available, more than €1 billion that are available for the companies to, and they already signed a lot of contracts for these amounts. And we had several meetings with international financial institutes that showed their disposal of financing the companies that are in this regulated business, coming to ANRE for new informations regarding the next regulatory period in order for them to adjust the policies of how they will credit finance this company. Mainly the companies, I think, that are financing their investments throughout their own funds and credits from institutional and from banks, and also European funds.
Okay, thank you. The Minister did indeed outline the sums being invested now through the Modernisation Fund. That was great. Volker told us earlier that E.ON don't just want to invest in new grid hardware, they want to invest in what he described as non-highway solutions, in flexibility, in demand response, in storage, and I assume you would support that, yes? And if so, how would you incentivize it?
We started already to license storage capacities, because I think this line of business is very important in the whole energy system. Many companies are coming to ANRE to license the storage facilities like batteries, and we are looking into the possibility of considering a new type of license for this type of activities. I don't want to launch anything out to the public yet. It's something that we are looking into the authority with my colleagues, but I think that sooner rather than later we will have an announcement on this issue.
Excellent. Volker, Daniela and Alfredo also said earlier that they want to get rid of any type of double taxation for storage, that storage operators should only be paying tax once and not when they buy and also when they sell. Would you agree?
I think this is a matter of common sense. You are not consuming these volumes of energy when you are storing it in your battery, and I think that this volume of energy should be without all the taxes, because the taxes are paid by the consumer of energy, not when it's like paying a tax when you go on a highway and then you stop for a coffee into a parking spot, and then you'll have to pay again a tax when you resume driving on a highway. So this is a matter of common sense. I think that taxes should be paid only once, not when you are consuming the energy, not when you are storing the energy. So I'm very firm and clear on this subject, no double taxation.
Okay, thank you, very helpful. We've talked also about where the revenues should come from to pay back the grid investments needed. And general view seems to be it's the consumer grid tariffs that are really the key. Is it only consumer grid tariffs? Is that the sole source of revenue, do you think, for grid investments, or could there be other sources of revenue?
I mean, this type of business is centered on tariffs. This is why the tariffs are established by the authority, because it is a state of monopoly. Yes, they have monopoly on the areas that they are distributing the electricity, and this is why the government stated that an independent authority should oversee these tariffs and establish these tariffs, because we are in a situation of monopoly. Throughout these tariffs, they have to establish all the investments that they are making and to see everyday operation as well.
Okay, thank you for that. Something we haven't talked about, and it's a big future element in Romania's electricity grid, and that is the HVDC cable you're going to build from Constanța to the Hungarian border when the Black Sea cable is built, bringing offshore wind from Azerbaijan. What are your plans for that?
Going further on with this project, it's a very important project. I know this project since I was Deputy Minister in the Ministry of Energy. My personal opinion is that it is a good solution for transporting huge volumes of renewable energy from the southeast part of Romania, if we count also the future investments in the Black Sea on the offshore wind capacities that Romania wants to develop in the Black Sea. So it is a good way to transport the energy from the southeast part of Romania to the northwest part and moving forward to the rest of the European countries. Of course, the volumes will be accessible to consumers in Romania, so it's going to have, from what I know, the project will have 4 stations that will going to be able to release the energy into the national transport system to the consumers of Romania if these volumes of energy will be needed for consumption in Romania. So it's a good project, a strategic project, I think, and ANRE is supporting this project.
Great. Alfredo, Daniela, Volker, we have 1 minute left. I'm going to ask you each, please, to say one thing you would like George and his team to take away from this event that they should be doing that they are not currently doing. Alfredo.
Well, you do a lot of things, so it's difficult to think what you're not doing, so do it. Maybe it could be my first point, and I think this holistic planning, this holistic view of things is becoming really critical. No? It's not easy for regulators, investors to understand the complexity, but this holistic view of things for me is absolutely key.
Daniela.
I would like to make sure that industry and the regulator is somehow contemplating the same picture. So it will be very important for us to make sure that we are on the same place when we talk about things. Thank you.
Volker.
I mentioned the heating strategy. I think next year we must start to have a heating strategy for each municipality in Romania, what to heat with, because this is a huge part of national energy consumption, and if we do that one wrong, I think we waste a hell of a lot of money, which we shouldn't. And that is wish number 1, and the other 2 things are the gas regulation starts just now to be a topic of discussion. I think for a few months probably this process of consultation goes on. We must find the right answers on that one, and let's not shy away. You mentioned numbers, and happy to hear that somehow there's an increase of investment. According to studies and to my conviction, I think the increase should be rather even bigger. And that's what I said. We are in those discussions right now on the electricity, but I think the electricity regulation still must be improved in order to really come to that level of investment, which brings down also the energy in total. Thank you.
George, final comment from you, please. You mentioned getting through this winter. Interesting. What are you planning to do this winter to help Romanian electricity consumers get through it, which perhaps you haven't done before?
I mean, we are overseeing the market at ANRE. We don't have a lot of things that we can do. This is a matter of the Ministry of Energy more than in our hands. But overseeing the market can also provide us a good view of what is going to happen, and we see that we have no reasons to be, I don't know, to be afraid of what is coming, because we have our gas deposits that are full 100%, more than 3.2 billion cubic meter of natural gas is already stored in our gas deposits. This gives us a level of security regarding the security of supply of natural gas for this winter.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a very warm round of applause to our excellent panelists. Adra, we yield back to you.
Hello again. O să revenim în limba română, pentru că majoritatea vorbitorilor din următorul panel sunt români sau vorbesc limba română. Așadar, permiteți-mi să-i invit pe scenă pe doamna Ruxandra Chirilă, de la Ministerul Fondurilor Europene, domnul Dan Virgil Pascu,